Hello everyone, I'm Charlie Danis of Capital Athletics, and this is the very first episode of the Capital Men's Basketball Podcast. I'm joined now by the head coach of the Capital Men's Basketball Program, Coach Damon Goodwin. And Coach, this is a chance for me to get to know you just a little bit better. So let's go way back in the time machine. Why the sport of basketball? Why did you decide to play that as a young man?
You know, I was a typical small town kid, played baseball, basketball, football, swam, did all kinds of stuff, and in high school just had some success playing basketball and stuck with it and grew, and that always helps when you're a basketball player. And just really enjoyed it. Some of my best friends from high school and college I still have from my teams, and really it's the only thing I've ever done in my life. I played 4 years of college and I've coached ever since. So it's my profession. It's who I am professionally, and it's what I do. So it's been mostly enjoyable. You know, like every coach, you have tough nights when you lose a game, but you come back and you get better the next night out.
You know, I'm curious, who were some of the big luminaries, the big coaches that were able to push you through your playing career and eventually affected you as a head coach?
Well, I had at St. Mary's, I had a guy named Paul Hirschberger as my coach. Very, very good man. In fact, his son played for me. Graduated in '05. I was a high school senior. He had a boy at the time, and he ended up being one of my players here at Capital. So that kind of stayed in the family. And then at Dayton, I played for a guy named Don Donaher that was there for about 25 years, and I'm still very close to him to this day. We talk every 3-4 weeks, probably once a month, and stay in touch. And those two guys, and a guy named Dan Hipsher was an assistant coach at Dayton when I was there, and I worked for him at Wittenberg. So I would think those three guys, as far as a coaching standpoint, are the guys that I've been my mentors, and I still stay in touch with all three of them.
I read your bio, and you were drafted by the Phoenix Suns. You got a little bit of a chance to play in the NBA. Could you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I spent a summer. I spent a summer out in Phoenix and at the LA Summer League, which they still have. We went to Portland, we went to Seattle, we went to Utah. We traveled around and had little 4-team tournaments, and I was actually invited back. We were in August. I went there June, July, and August. I was invited back in October, but I knew I wasn't going to make the team and be a practice type of player and probably go to the CBA. At that time it was called, which is now the D League, basically. And I just didn't want to do that. I give it a shot, and I just I knew that I had wanted to coach at that time. I went back to school, got a graduate assistant spot at Dayton, and been coaching ever since.
So why coaching? What was the impetus for trying to go after that type of career?
Well, I just liked it. You know, I liked the feeling of staying around young people and being involved in their lives. And one of the things that I believe we've done well here at Capital is stay in touch with the guys that have been through our program. We have a very strong alumni group. We have a very strong, when we have events, when we honor teams from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, that they come back. It's a very strong group of people, and I enjoy that part of it. It keeps me somewhat young, and I enjoy the challenge of helping them, trying to help them become better people, and that's why I do it.
We're going to touch on this during the game preview for your next opponent, Wittenberg, but before you came to Capital, you were an assistant coach there, and I'm sure that played a huge role in your development as a coach. Could you talk about your time in Springfield?
Well, sure. I was there for 5 years. I was an assistant there for 5 years, one for a guy named Dan Hipsher, which I already mentioned. He got the job from being an assistant at Dayton to be the head coach at Wittenberg, and I actually spent 1 year there with the guy that still coached there, Bill Brown. And very successful. We won the league 5 times, won the tournament 4 times, and it was a great way for me to learn how to become a basketball coach, to be honest, because we had a full JV schedule. I had my own practice, was there practicing 4 or 5 hours a day, which when you're 23, 24, 25, that helps you become a good coach. And I really do believe that helped me. And my son, my oldest son, also attended Wittenberg, so just graduated actually last December, so I spent a lot of time there recently watching him play baseball. So it's a good school, it's a good program, and certainly helped me develop into a basketball coach.
What was the biggest lesson that you learned from Wittenberg while being an assistant coach there?
Well, I think it's just the hard work. This is a hard job. It's not easy. It's hard physically, it's hard mentally, and that you have to put a lot of time into it. You have to. It's always evolving. It never stays the same. There's different challenges every day. There's different issues from a practice standpoint. There's different issues from a personality standpoint. There's different issues from a university standpoint. Those things are ever changing, and you have to be able to adapt, and you have to be able to put a lot of time into becoming a good coach and a good basketball program.
When I first got the job here at Capital, I was struck by the beauty of Bexley and the campus. When you first came here to Capital, what was so intriguing about the job?
Well, I thought it was a good program. Historically they had a strong program. They were a little down at the time, but I really believe being in the conference, the Ohio Athletic Conference, was a great conference. They had great coaches at the time. I came in and I was the youngest coach for the first 4, 5, 6 years that I was in the league. Those coaches did not change over. Now I'm kind of at the other end. I think I'm the second oldest coach in the league at this point. But I learned a lot from competing against those guys. Dick Reynolds at Otterbein and Jim Burson at Muskingum, Steve Bankson at BW, Joe Chiampoli at Ohio Northern. Those guys have been there forever, and those were the guys that I coached against when I was young, and I thought that was an important part of the attraction of the job. Was a great league, but also the school was a great school, and Bexley and Columbus, it's a great place to live and to have a family, and it's very attractive for us.
Looking at the records, it looked as though that those first few years here at Capital were a little bit of a struggle.
Sure.
New head coach trying to get your
Sure.
system down there. When did you think things started clicking for you during your coaching tenure?
I think the biggest part for our program was the building. When we built the Capitol Center, I think things changed dramatically for us. We became a lot more attractive to recruits. We became a lot more attractive to maybe some of the kids that weren't looking at our university before from a basketball standpoint. Just having a facility that was one of the best around, and when you add that with the location of the school, I think that certainly changed things for us, and it certainly is an advantage for us right now where we're located, and that we still do have one of the better buildings. It's like an arms race even at our level, though. I mean, all these schools are building new rec centers and new gyms and all that, so we still have to combat that a little bit, but that really, to me, was a turning point in our program was when we built the Capitol Center.
You've had a whole bunch of different assistant coaches, and one of the things that I found interesting about this particular team is your longest tenured assistant coach, Anthony Golson, is only into his second season, and then you got a couple of other guys who have just broken into as assistant coaches. Can you talk about your coaching staff a little bit?
Yeah, Anthony Golson is a former head coach in the league, coached at Heidelberg. Didn't really know him really from a coaching standpoint other than competing against each other. I just really thought he tried to do the right things at Heidelberg and had struggled somewhat there. And when he was let go, I said, hey, I'd love to have you on our staff. So he's been on our staff for the past 2 years. Andy Winters and Vaughn Spalding are both kids that are local kids. One of the things we're trying to do is bring more local talent back into Columbus and not let it go to Marietta or not let it go to John Carroll or someplace. And they both work very hard. And before that, we had a coach for 1 year, but before that, we had coached for 7 years. So, I'm excited about our staff. I think they're doing a great job. We just have to, we have to get better players every year, and that's what we're trying to do from a recruiting standpoint.
All right, Coach, let's end this podcast on a good note here. Every week we'll ask you, not necessarily a random question, but again, we were trying to get to know you, know the program a little bit better. So here's, I guess, the random question for this week. Your favorite sports movie, if you had to name one?
Hoosiers.
Oh, that's easy because you're a basketball
coach. It's a great movie, yeah, great movie when it came out, and it's just we have it at home, and I still watch it every now and then. So it was a great movie, and it's certainly something that I have a 14-year-old boy right now, and he's seen a couple times too, and it's a good thing. it's a neat thing for him to watch as well, based on a true story, and which even makes it better.
I would put Hoosiers right in between Remember the Titans and Rudy. Like, those would be my top three right there, Coach.
Those are good too.
Thanks so much for joining us for the podcast. This has been the Capital Men's Basketball Podcast. Thank you so much for Coach Damon Goodwin joining us today. I'm Charlie Danis for Capital Athletics. We'll see you next time.